Good evening. I'll call to order our public consultation meeting for our 5-year financial plan for Wednesday, May the 5th. This time I'll turn it over to our Director of Finance, Dale Cordes, to give us an update.
Thank you, Your Worship. Got to get my screen here. Share. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so it's that time of year again to talk about our financial plan for the next 5 years. And this is what I'll be talking about tonight, what the charter requires of us. Go over some assessment information, go over some tax rates and revenue information and some comparisons. Go over our financial plan in a summary form. Some of the bigger highlights of our budget this year. And then I'll go over revenue and expenditures and then the summary. And then of course, questions and comments due to the pandemic can be emailed to myself at dcordes@hope.ca if any of the public have any questions, which I'd forward on to council if need be. So the charter requires that we have to have an annual financial plan adopted by bylaw, and it has to be adopted before our tax rate bylaw. It's the current year plus the following 4 years. And we have to disclose the expenditures, and we can't exceed the funding sources for the year. So it obviously has to be balanced. This is a comparison of our assessment information for this year over last year. Our assessments on the right, you can see the percentage change. It's a little bit more moderate than last year. Wasn't too bad. The prior years were pretty hefty at 20+% or so. So it's a little bit more reasonable for assessment changes this year. That'll be reflected in some of the slides that I show in a little while here. Like I always do, I like to show an average assessment in the district. And for this year, for a single family dwelling, it's $436,000, which is an increase of about $20,000 over last year. And this just shows you the change in the average assessed value of a single family resident over the last 5 years. So you can see that it has gone up, but fairly reasonable in the last year. For property tax, I'll go over what we're increasing our revenue, and then compare some tax rates, and then a scenario with average property tax, how our tax is distributed, and what we have to collect for other agencies and governments on our tax notice. So we're going to generate this year about $226,500, or what equates to about 2.5% of revenue increase. That's not a 2.5% property tax rate increase. That's just generating more revenue, which what part contributes to that is also new construction in that. So it's not just our assessment base obviously isn't static. So it includes new construction that's happened in the past year. So here's a look at our residential rates over the last year. And you can see that our residential class 1 rate has gone down from last year. And I'll just go through these. These are all the different classes with the rates, and you can see how they've changed over the past 5 years. So that one's gone down as well. The business class has gone down actually each year in the last 5 years. So that's certainly helping business. Excuse me. And then we have our class 8 recreational nonprofit. Again, you'll see the trend that they have been dropping over the last 5 years. And that's part and parcel to the fact that our assessments have gone up and for what we want to generate in revenue. So the rates are reflective by being lower due to the higher assessments for what we want to generate. And lastly, farm, again, a downward trend over the last 5 years, except for that 1 year. I stand corrected. So for a single family residence, using that average assessment of the 430,600, using the tax rates, and this year school tax was kind enough to get us their rates early. So these are actual school tax rates. So based on that 430,000 average assessment, that's what that tax notice would look like for 2021. And then to compare it to last year, again, these are all actual rates that are in place based on that average assessment. So you can see that it's just gone up. On the next slide, you'll see that it's only gone up about $20 for that average assessment, which is pretty reasonable. And this is a slide showing what we collect versus what we have to collect for the other governments and agencies, and that's the makeup of that $2,900 average assessment total. And this one just shows you, based on the average assessments over the last 5 years, how it's changed. So it has gone up, but it's gone up not drastically over the last year for sure. And this is just showing the municipal portion based on that average assessment. So that doesn't include anything that we collect for school tax or the regional district or anything like that. So that's gone up not very much for this year. This slide is just showing us our total tax that we're going to generate for municipal purposes is 8.7 million. To the right, it shows the percentage on each class of that revenue. And it just, again, it shows on the bottom left the comparison from the assessments. So that's just showing a breakdown of how our revenue is distributed. This is a comparison of collections for other governments and agencies, and the standout there is the provincial school, and that's gone up 58%, and that's basically because in 2020, the government gave that break for business on the school tax due to the pandemic, and all that number is really doing is bringing it back up to normal levels. It's not jumping 58% higher than it would have been say 2 years ago. It's just bringing it back up on par from when they gave the break to the business taxpayers last year on the provincial school tax. Some of the bigger ticket items in our budget this year, and the first couple are grant dependent. The Richmond Hill, we're waiting for word on that. The Othello Roads, we're waiting for word on that grant application. Again, another one, PCC outfall and headwork screening. We're waiting for that. There is a fleet replacement program in place, getting rid of some older fleet vehicles that are long out past their useful life, and that will be paid out of our reserves. So on the financial plan, it's 5 years, as I mentioned, and it's balanced in every year. And then I'll go over the expenditures, revenues, and a summary of our financial plan. So this is a breakdown of each expenditure category in our budget. You can see that our total is 15.2 million. The bottom line item there is the non-cash item, the 1.8 for amortization. And just so you can see it graphically, that's how it breaks out. So protective services, you can see is the key, the big one there. That encompasses fire protection, police protection bylaw. On the revenue side, that's a summary of, again, of our municipal tax revenue. And then adding that number at the top there into the rest of our various categories of revenues. We are sitting at 18.9 million for revenues in our budget. And then to balance, well, that's a graphic of our revenues. So obviously property tax makes up our big chunk. Government transfers is right about half of that. So when we take our total revenues less our expenditures, we have a surplus of 3.6, and then we bring in our capital, debt, and reserve transfers. Capital expenditures are 6.1 this year. We have our debt repayment, contributing back to our reserves of 1.45 million. We're using about $500,000 or so to balance our budget from prior year surplus, which helps reduce taxes. And the other equity and tangible capital assets is an offset to the amortization, so that's a non-cash item. And then what we're planning on using from our reserves, out of our capital reserves, and again, part of that is the fleet replacement, and there's a few others, smaller ones. So that brings us down to a balanced budget at zero there. And that went really quick. So this was question period. So if council's got any questions, again, I mentioned for the public, they can certainly email me if they have any questions. I mean, this is a general overview. It's not a real detailed presentation. That would take a long time. But this is what's been done in the past, and it gives the public a good idea of, especially the residents, about what they might expect, depending on their assessment, of course. And there shouldn't be a lot of real big increases across the board, certainly with residential. And I think I could probably say that business will probably see a reduction in some of their tax bills as well, from a municipal point of view. I can't speak for all the other government agencies because they set their own rates and we have to follow suit. So yeah, that's it for this one. If there's any questions.
Any questions for our Director of Finance from Council? Otherwise, Councillor Stu and then Councillor Medlock.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I just, not a question. I do want to thank Dale. He explains it so nicely. The presentations are always easy to understand. And Dale, I don't know if you realize this or not, but the community really appreciates it and they appreciate your hard work. So I just wanted to say thank you. And maybe, yes, one more question. Have you had any concerns or questions about the applications for the homeowners grants this year? And how will we communicate to the public that the applications need to be done online?
Well, thanks very much, Councillor Stu. And we've been trying to get that word out as much as possible. It's on the tax notice itself, and I think we've had it on the website to say that you do not claim your homeowner grant at the municipal office anymore. It's through the portal of the government website, and same with deferments. So they've taken that right off our plate, which is quite nice, actually. But this is a learning year for the public, and also, I expect that our staff will probably field a lot of questions, and there might be some frustrations, but that's just the way the province has got it going now. So I think once it gets rolling, I think it'll be great once the public knows that. And I think it's a pretty simple process. I've been on enough webinars to see how they're setting it up and everything. So it's really a matter of just getting the word out to the public that no, you can't come in with there's no more bottom tab on the tax notice with the homeowner grant. So that's one thing. They might say, well, where is it? And well, that's disappeared now. But we do have in its replacement a message saying that you do not claim it at the municipal office anymore. So it's going to be a year in transition for sure, and hopefully there won't be too many upset people. But I think once they get used to it, it'll be a pretty simple process for them. And I can just stress that to the taxpayer, don't forget to claim your homeowner grant before July 2nd, because you don't want to get penalized for it. And it's depending on what kind of grant you're getting, you don't certainly want to get penalized for something that just from missing a date.
Thank you.
Councillor Medlock.
Yeah, I didn't really have a question either, just more of a comment. On the point on the property tax notice, I noticed it's on the District of Hope's Facebook page today. So that's another way for us to get that message out there. But I'm just happy to see that, with increased assessed values, mostly from new construction, that's really helped keep our tax rates more competitive. And I think our ratio of residential to business is pretty good. And I think that puts us in a good place to continue to attract businesses to come to our community. I know that in the past, when our tax rates were quite a bit higher, that was a bit of a deterrent. And I still think BC Assessment definitely needs to do a reassessment on all of our business class properties at once, so that they're all accurately valued, and that tax rate will then drop even more because the assessed values will be more accurate. I know that's something we can't do, but we can continue to advocate for them. But anyways, great presentation again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I can add that when I calculate the rates, it's all based on assessment and new construction, et cetera, et cetera. Our ratio with business had dropped from last year as well. And I think the trend the last couple of years is it's dropped, not hugely, but it's dropping. So that, that is an assistance to business. So there's there's factors that come into play when you're calculating the rates, but I can't say that the ratio for business has dropped from last year.
Yeah, I think it used to be at sort of a high of around 3 to 1. And it's definitely
it's about
quite a
two,
bit lower.
It's below 2.9, I think.
Yeah.
So the trend is going down. So
And that's excellent. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? All right. Thank you, Dale, for another good presentation and a strong budget for the next 5 years. At this time, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you for everyone for participating tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.